WordPress has seen a string of vulnerabilities recently, with the latest so severe that it lets hackers gain complete control of the admin panel. We're talking SQL injection, running shell commands, pretty bad. And maybe you don't care about WordPress, but it still runs over 44% of the world's websites. So many of the websites that you interact with and give your data to could likely be running WordPress and this vulnerable version. So it basically works like this. So I've got installed locally a standard stock version of WordPress, and I can run this first script to see if the vulnerability is available. And you can see we get the response HTTP 207, which means yes, it is in fact vulnerable. And that means we can now run the second check, which is to enter the interactive shell. So this SQL injects the site, creates a brand new admin user, and then uploads a malicious plugin that allows me to now interact with any file on this website. So let's dive into the issue and see exactly how it works. So this repo that I'm looking at shows you exactly how to SQL inject vulnerable WordPress sites. That's any site between 6.90 and 6.94 or 7.00 and 7.01. The whole attack starts by calling an unauthenticated endpoint batch v1, which allows you to batch up other requests that themselves are validated and permission checked. The batch handler has two parallel arrays which are supposed to stay in sync, validation and matches. But a bug meant that when the function wp parse URL fails due to an invalid path, only validation was updated. So now the same index used to look at both arrays provided mismatched results. The POC takes advantage of this. It sends a batch containing just one request, a post to the v2 posts endpoint, which itself carries a requests body. Since the parent's request was correctly validated as a post request, any requests in the request body end up bypassing the method allow list, letting you send get requests. Then inside that inner batch is a get request to a post that does not exist, which triggers the earlier desync, causing WordPress to dispatch the same request under a function called get items, where a field author exclude maps to author not in, which the vulnerable build interpolates into SQL as a string. Basically, because all of this is running internally, the SQL is not escaped. The PSC uses a series of requests that ultimately allows a post request to v2 users to create a new admin account. The repo actually goes through all of these steps in detail. The first 5 are pre-auth, so take advantage of the bug. But step 6 is just normal WordPress behavior for authenticated users, which is to upload a malicious package. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, this is just the standard stock version of WordPress. The vulnerability is not accessed through some sort of malicious plugin. You can just install standard WordPress. We run this check script first, which basically validates if the vulnerability can be run. Then we can run this read command, for example, which tells us things like the database user and the database name. We can now also run SQL against the website, so we can find out things like which version the database is actually running. And none of that is actually the bad stuff. This is the really bad one, where we actually create an admin account that has access to be able to upload a malicious plugin. In this case, it's called Web Shell. This allows us to access the shell of the website, meaning we can now have access to any file on this website. And this attack happens in the way that we explained earlier on in the video. So after the admin is created, the plugin is then uploaded, and then finally that user is deleted. So the existence of the plugin and what's happened is now more discrete. To also demonstrate how bad this is, I've created a separate script which will create an admin and then keep it on the system. So here I've got a username and a password. I'm back on the website. If I head over to the WP login route, I can enter that username and password, click login, and now I have full access to the admin panel. Now, if any of this is confusing, then don't worry, it took me a long time to work out as well. The claim is that the resulting exploit chain was so absurdly complex that it would have taken a human security researcher weeks, if not months, to discover and piece together on its own. No security researcher could have found and completed this exploit chain in 10 hours without AI. And this is pretty scary because bad actors could effectively have bots scanning repos, checking URLs, just waiting for vulnerabilities to appear and exploiting it in record time using AI. One user on Reddit said that their site was compromised just 2 days after it was discovered, and since they only upgrade on weekends, an attacker was able to create a new admin and log in. For those vulnerable, the exploit was fixed in version 7.0.2, so you can upgrade to that. But that is a pretty mad one. You can find the repo and the article in the comments that I've used to run the POC. And why not subscribe to Better Stack to stay up to date with all of the tech news. I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. And of course, as always, I'll see you in the next one.